To quote a song by the late David Bowie, "I'm afraid of Americans, I'm afraid of the world, I'm afraid I can't help it." Bowie, 1997. To be more specific, I'm scared of the current administration and how the rights of transgender citizens are under attack under its authority. Being a transgender woman who is on hormones and in a relationship with a transgender man, this is an issue that directly impacts both the lives of myself and my boyfriend. It is also worth noting that most of my closest friends are also transgender and that it is likely that they could be targeted in public spaces. The political climate of the United States has created a hostile environment for transgender citizens and our allies through violence and harmful legislation. Many individuals are murdered for their gender identities, with statistics showing that at least 27 trans and gender non-conforming citizens were killed between November of 2024 and November 2025. Human Rights Campaign, 2025. In the months since this statistic was posted, more trans and gender non-conforming people have been fatally attacked for their gender identity. Unfortunately, violence against the LGBTQIA+ community isn't a new phenomenon. In fact, it has been an issue within our society throughout its history. Recently, however, there has been a rise in hate speech and legislation designed to limit or remove transgender rights, which often leads to more violence. From a sociological standpoint, my question is, how has Donald Trump's presidency played a part in shifting public perceptions against the trans community? Recently, the White House released a document outlining its counterterrorism strategy. There are multiple groups labeled as threats to the country, most notably left-wing extremists. The Trump administration defines left-wing extremism, in the counterterrorism strategy, as being anti-fascist, radically pro-transgender, and hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. The White House, 2026. There are two primary reasons these documents were released to the public: to intimidate leftists into conforming with the administration's political ideology, as well as alienating those who don't match their definition of normal by labeling them and their beliefs as extremist and dangerous. Since queer individuals don't conform to the rules and expectations on gender roles laid out by society, we are often a third, as our identities are stigmatized by those in power. In the case of the Trump administration, there has been a significant increase in persecution against transgender citizens following the 2024 election. In July of 2025, for example, the federal government shut down services that benefited LGBTQIA+ youth, such as the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Their reasoning was that they encouraged children to embrace radical gender ideology. Lewis, 2025. Transgender Americans grow up in a society that discriminates against us for not conforming to social expectations. Harmful rhetoric and misinformation are major issues, but this arguably puts the most lives at risk. Many transgender youth feel as if they'd be better off dead than being their authentic selves. It isn't my place to give away personal information, but I know plenty of people who've attempted to take their own lives. Whether or not it was intentional, the federal government's actions felt like a message to transgender Americans that our lives are ultimately worthless and that our struggles don't matter. Either way, it reflects an indifference towards the issues transgender people deal with. Statistically, transgender individuals report higher rates of anxiety, depression and suicidal ideation compared to the rest of the population. In most cases, it is the result of discrimination, barriers to healthcare, misinformation, and social rejection. With these support systems being removed, the logical assumption would be that more lives will be lost. Transgender citizens need the support, affirmation and understanding that the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline can provide. Instead, we're targeted for our identities and treated like a threat to the nation. Looking back at the counterterrorism strategy, the Trump administration outright stated, "We will find you and we will kill you." The White House, 2026. From my understanding, this is a direct threat aimed at those who Donald Trump wants his followers to view as dangerous, because they fail to meet social expectations based on gender roles and oppose his authority. Releasing a public document that labels radically pro-transgender ideology as a form of extremism, while promising that the government will murder the perceived threat, it perpetuates violence against the trans community. Many MAGA supporters would most likely cite the document as an excuse to justify attacks against transgender individuals. It's difficult for me to separate the statements made by the Trump administration in these executive documents from the broader political efforts targeting the transgender community. I'm afraid of Donald Trump. Under his presidency, I'm worried that my rights could be stripped away at any moment. Both my and my boyfriend's lives/rights are constantly at risk, and I'm nervous because I feel powerless. If the political climate continues the way it is past the 2028 election, I won't feel safe in the United States, and would consider immigrating to another country with my boyfriend for our own protection. Despite everything happening in the country, why is the mere existence of transgender people the thing getting so much political attention? It seems that the media and our overall collective consciousness is constantly being flooded by sensational, yet less meaningful, issues created to distract from more important considerations. For example, the Trump administration has bombed Iran, torn down the East Wing of the White House, dismantled entire governmental departments and agencies, withheld funding and attacked all rivals and opponents whether they be real or perceived, and has even attacked the rights and freedoms of transgender citizens. All in futile efforts to distract the voting majority from issues Trump would like forgotten or at least ignored. He promised voters that there would be no new wars, be a president of peace, resolve the Ukrainian conflict, improve the economy, lower grocery prices, and immediately release all the Epstein files, in which he's mentioned more times than Harry Potter throughout the entire Harry Potter series, and is mentioned more than Jeffrey Epstein. None of these promises have been kept, mentioned, or even acknowledged. This is a lot of information for a sociological imagination paper. Oftentimes social norms are dictated or defined by those in power. As I've discussed earlier, transgender people generally don't fit within those narrowly defined gender roles. Because of that fact, it is easier for the dominant culture to label us as deviant, since we disrupt the established status quo. Donald Trump has been behind the propagation of such rhetoric, division and hate speech. He's removed all mentions of the LGBTQIA+ community from the White House's website. Isaac Bunham, 2017. One of the primary reasons for this is to incite existing fears by putting so much emphasis on major differences between groups of people, cultures and communities in order to distract from bigger issues. I think the mob song from Disney's Beauty and the Beast defines this mentality rather effectively with the lyric, "We don't like what we don't understand, in fact it scares us." Truesdale and Wise, 1991.